Welcome. Welcome. We're already having fun, and the show just started. Been in here in studio having fun. If you're wondering why I'm in such a good mood, I'll give you a few reasons. Bet on the NBA draft last night. I believe that betting drafts, both the NBA and NFL drafts, are two of the easiest things to make money on for a professional bettor. MMA's up there. Cleared about 2,200 on the NBA draft last night. That's a fascinating thing to bet on because instead of betting on a guy getting knocked out or winning a fight or a football team winning, you're betting on this guy will be drafted over under the 11th spot and stuff like that. Or this guy will go in the first round, he won't go in the first round. Very interesting. So I'm also in a good mood because I am joined by two of my favorite people in the world, UFC Hall of Famer, inaugural welterweight champion, Pat Miletich, back in the Quad Cities. Back in our Davenport studio. How are you doing, sir? And would you like to introduce our special guest?
I'm doing great. I appreciate it, Joshua. And yeah, our guest tonight or today, wherever you are when you're watching this, is a very, very good, long-time dear friend of mine. Did a lot of training with him over the years. Guy that came here from another continent, Africa, and made America his home. And his name is Josh Howat, and the guy has a wealth of knowledge in a lot of different areas in life. And so, yeah, it's going to be a pleasure to have him on today. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you, gents. Wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Josh, I'll just have there's going to be several stories told in this episode. I'll just have you start off with this story. How did MMA Mobsters come into existence? Because you played a massive role in that. You played matchmaker, so to speak. And so talk about, I guess, why you wanted me and Miletich to meet so bad and how you've enjoyed seeing things evolve since then.
Well, you and I were just getting to know each other, weren't we, Josh? You walked in, I own a pub locally. Josh walked in one day and we got chatting. And, you know, as you do, you ask, you know, how do you make a living? What do you do? What are you doing here? And Josh, you know, told me he was from the Quad Cities originally, grown up here, and that he was now a professional gambler, and his specialty was betting on MMA. And I said, wow, that's very interesting. And then, you know, we got talking about it, and you started, after some prodding and some poking, you started running down some of the accolades. And I'm like, you know what, mate? I need to introduce you to somebody. And it goes back to a conversation that you and I had, Pat, a long time ago in a long drive up to Big Bear, I want to say, in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Watch, for LFA.
Uh-huh.
And about, you know, how, you know, gambling and sports books and that sort of stuff was becoming a really big thing in MMA.
Yeah.
So I thought, hey, listen, mate, I need to introduce you to Pat. And Houston agreed with me. And that's how that whole thing came about. So one day, just happenstance, Pat was in, and I'm like, hey, Pat, you got to meet this guy. And that was that. I introduced you to, and the chemistry was initiated and born. And
yeah, no, I don't agree with the chemistry thing at all because he was he was so standoffish. He was like, yeah.
Well, you want to know what it was, and I shouldn't. I shouldn't. I don't think I ever told you this, Pat.
Maybe a little more naive.
Yeah.
I don't think he was aloof to you because he was better. I think he was in awe of meeting you.
I was a little bit. Yeah, you're a fucking UFC Hall of Famer. You don't meet people like that every day. So.
Well, I was just excited. I'm like, holy shit, this guy's an expert at gambling in MMA. I want to talk to this guy, and he won't even fucking say like 3 words to me. I'm like, fuck.
I think there were also fights on that I had money on, so I'm
so
like
you were distracted.
I'm like, I can't be disrespectful to the UFC Hall of Famer, but I also have $800 on this fight. So that was kind of. But I will say this, and I've said this before. They say don't meet your heroes. I met one of my heroes in Miletich and have been nothing but impressed. All I knew was the animal in the cage and the warrior, and getting to know him as a person. He's very smart. He's very caring, which was something that surprised me. So it's been a fun ride.
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely.
Any specific story that you want Howat to tell? You guys are talking about something about a ninja or something that I was kind of fascinated by. Are we going to tell that story?
Josh?
Yeah. Well,
Some story about a ninja?
Share, and we kind of led into the morning classes were always a wonderful time at Pat's. Evening classes was compulsory for the pros, but some of those guys would also come in the mornings. And I was sitting after morning. I worked nights, so I worked out mostly during the day. And I was sitting right after class one day, and a young guy walked in, and he was kind of looking around, and I was just being friendly. Hey, who are you? His name was Brandon Adamson. He came from Sacramento, California, and we were talking, we're just chatting. What are you doing here? This, that, and the next thing. And in Pat's room, all the guys that had made the show, either Pride or UFC, were all lined around the top of the eave of the mats, and their pictures were. And he pointed directly at Jens's photo, and Jens, I think it was at the Mohegan Sun, with his belt, and he said, "I want that belt one day."
And that was a photo of Jens.
The look on my face.
Jens Pulver, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, and it's crazy when you and Pat and others tell these stories because you're on a first-name basis with these guys. And I just want to make sure the people watching at home know that Jens is Jens Pulver, UFC Hall of Famer, UFC lightweight champion, had a legendary back and forth with BJ Penn, and it's just crazy for a guy who Miletich, obviously UFC Hall of Famer. Howat has I think 12 pro fights. I'm a fanboy. I'm a 9 pro fights. I'm in awe of both these guys. I've had a lot of success betting MMA and analyzing it, but I'm a math nerd fanboy compared to these guys. And the way that they will just name drop legends like Tim. Oh, you mean Tim Sylvia, the UFC heavyweight champion, or Jens? You mean Jens Pulver, the UFC Hall of Famer, or Matt? You mean Matt Hughes, the absolute legend, multiple-time champion? So it's crazy how they just casually just hang out with legends. So please continue the story there, Josh.
Sorry, I will use full names from now on. It was a trip being in there, mate. It really was.
I bet, yeah.
And Pat will attest to my lack of capabilities. I was a real monkey when it came to it. I wasn't very capable.
He was tougher than shit.
I had to walk. Pat used to say, "Man, you got to lift your feet up. Why are you in concrete? Every time you spar, you're in concrete. No wonder people use you as a catching mitt." But these guys were incredible. So anyway, Brandon points at Jens Pulver's picture, and he states, "I want that belt one day." And I'm like, "Wow, dude, that's..." Inside me, I think all my blood drained from my face, and I had a little conversation and maybe a little giggle to myself, like, "Wow, dude, you've come to eat a big lunch." And so that was in the morning. That was at 9:00, and then later on that evening, everybody circled up. It must have been a Monday because it was
or a Wednesday
sparring with takedowns.
It was sparring with takedowns, so it was Monday. Yeah.
Wow, it's crazy. You guys remember that?
And somewhere in the mix, Brandon got his wish. He got to be in the mix with Mr. Jens Pulver and a couple of others. I don't remember who else was there at the time. Anyway, I probably wouldn't have known because I was brand new. I'd only been there for like 6 weeks. But Brandon gets in there and with his hero, with the reason for him moving from Sacramento, California to Iowa. Which was a normal thing back in those days. People moved from all over the world, all over the country. I mean, Lee Murray was in there. Who was the other big heavyweight from the heavyweight from Britain, England?
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. It'll pop in my...
Freeman?
Yeah, Ian Freeman. Freeman, yeah.
Was in there. So this was not unusual to have people move from, or travel from out of the country, let alone across the nation. So anyway, he gets in the ring, in the circle with his idol and the reason for being there, and pop. Next thing you know, Brandon is being drugged to the sidewall.
Wow.
and slumped, put up against the thing. He got knocked out, which was to be expected. He was brand spanking new.
Well, the thing is the reason I let him in there because I wouldn't let just anybody come to those. They had to be, they had to have credentials. And so for me, he trained at the Lions Den and all that sort of stuff out there back in those days. So, and he had very good kickboxing skills. I mean, he was very good Muay Thai skills. And so, yeah, but Jens just had, I mean, a lot of power. Right.
That wasn't out of not being cautious or anything. You know,
Right.
He came to do this. He had a background in it. He was very capable, and he walked in, and unfortunately, Jens pieced him up. And I just remember him being dragged to the corner and slumped. And when he came to, the man, I've known this man for a long time, known as kids. Like he's a dear old friend of mine. And Brandon, as tough as nails, he shook it off and tried to get back in there, but he was still in a bad place. And Pat actually had to restrain him and be like, dude, you're not doing this anymore tonight. Your night is over. Sit in the corner, watch, but you're done sparring tonight. But it was just an incredible snapshot of what a lot of guys, I think, that showed up at MFS back in those days had. They
crazy.
showed up to be part of the team, to be part of this amazing suit that Pat had brought together.
A soup.
I mean, there were guys all over the place.
I like that.
The ninja story was the same sort of time. Jeremy Horn was there, and Jeremy's from Omaha, Nebraska, and had met Pat. Did you guys fight or?
No, he fought my training partner, Mark Hansen, the Davenport police officer. Yeah, and then he came to train with us, and he was part of the ninjutsu school in Omaha, and that was the crazy. I don't know if have I told those stories of what they used to do?
Tell them again.
The shit they used to do.
Brick to brick and.
Oh, but they would put two balance beams next to each other, then put another balance beam on top of those, so you'd be 8 feet in the air. Then they'd get on top of the top balance beam and with bow staffs and have bow staff battles and smack each other with bow staffs and knock each other off. And then
crazy.
they would pick out like gangbangers because a lot of their training partners were Omaha police officers as well, right? Now, the Omaha police officers weren't taking part in any of this, but these guys in their young days would isolate like a gangbanger, and they'd knock him out. They'd pick a fight with him. One of them would pick a fight with him, and they'd knock him out in a one-on-one fight. But while they were doing that, the other ninjas were at the guy's house rearranging all of his furniture and shit. So he'd come home after getting knocked out to a house full of fucking furniture that was rearranged.
That's fucking great.
That's the kind of crazy shit those guys. And they would take the Bud Light or Budweiser, whatever, the cutouts of people, the cardboard cutouts, the life size. They would go underneath. It's the Missouri River between Nebraska and Iowa, correct? Isn't it the Missouri?
Yes,
So they would go on the girders underneath the bridge, and that's it's a huge bridge. And there were the steel gaps in the concrete, right? The ribbed the gaps.
This is like SEAL Team 6 shit.
And
like the stuff they're doing to do a prank.
And they would thrust those life-size Bud Light people cardboard up into traffic and hear people skid. Stupid shit. Obviously, get people hurt. But they were crazy. They were legit crazy.
I haven't heard that for a long, long time.
That is wild.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that I remember after class one morning sitting around, and I think Rick Gravison was there, who was a giant. I think he was a professional repossessor. He repossessed cars.
And a prison guard.
And a prison guard, yeah.
In very, very max security prisons. Very dangerous places.
He was a monster of a man too. Just looked the part too.
He's benching like 550 pounds now.
It was just a fascinating place to be and to see these amazing men that I saw on TV just bullshitting, hanging out with me. Jeremy showing me stuff. And Jeremy was one of those guys who was super, super nice. One of the most friendly, open guys you'd ever meet. But then he'll tell you, he's like, you know what, mate? I just really like hurting people. And it was something that you'd never think would come out of this guy's mouth, you know? But he's just like, yeah, just there's something about it that just makes me smile inside. And not, you know, not in an evil, malicious, you know, snatching people off the street. But he liked being tested, and he liked making people understand who he was.
Jeremy came a long ways, man, because I think because when he and I used to spar with each other in his early days, he wouldn't. I think he just had respect for me or something at the time. He didn't want to punch me or whatever. And I'd tell him, dude, if you don't hit me back, I'm going to hit you harder. Literally, you got it. You got to start. You know, I'm trying to get you good here. And but he was the first one to eventually drop me with a body shot. Out of all the guys that I trained, he was the one that dropped me the first time with a liver shot, and then ran around the room high-fiving everyone. He paid me back numerous times.
That's
a dangerous thing to do in that room.
This is amazing. Josh, I think we're going to go with you for about 20, 25 more minutes, but we could easily go all day, but we can't go all day for multiple reasons. I have an appointment at 4 that I need to get to. No. Okay. Moving on.
Oh, you don't want to talk about
No,
that?
I do not want to. God damn it, Pat. We are not talking about. Okay.
Joshua has a business to open, so
and we have business to open, and it is the reason that we can't talk all day, Josh, is because we are doing a live show at your pub here in a few hours. Do a little promo for that, and Pat doesn't even know who the guests are. I wanted you to tell him on air he's going to get to reconnect with several people he may not have seen for a while.
I kind of went before you. I hope you don't mind, but maybe you might remember some of these names. So let me see. I've got a Mr. Drew McFedries.
Oh, beautiful.
I just said his name and I have goosebumps.
Dude, that'll be great to see him.
For me, that's the guy that shows up in my nightmares. That's a man that is.
He shows up in a lot of people's nightmares.
So
I've had multiple people tell me that
with his limbs and so he'll be there. Mr. Rashard Brooks will be there.
Beautiful.
Mr. Sean West.
Good. Awesome.
What else do we have coming? Oh, and another one of my guys from the way back when, Mr. Kenny Nyquist.
Oh yeah, awesome. That's beautiful.
So
well, good. That'll be good to see all those guys.
Some older guys from MFS and a very late comer in Mr. Sean West, but still had plenty of time and nurturing under the banner of MFS.
Yeah.
And then the man, the myth, the legend, Steve Houston will be co-hosting with me and Pat. Houston filled in the past couple shows, did a fantastic job. So it's gonna be a fun fucking night. There's gonna be some wild stories. There's gonna be it's going to be an entertaining evening. Talk about the Clever Name Barbecue and everything else going on.
They're the guys. That's my buddy Randy and his lovely lady Hannah, and they are bringing something fantastic. He didn't tell me what it was, but I think he's trying to give us the full repertoire of his capabilities. So we've had brisket, we've had ribs, we've had pulled pork. I don't know where we're going tonight, but
it's the best damn barbecue I've ever had in my life.
It's so fucking
I've eaten
good.
barbecue all over this country, I'm telling you. I've eaten in Texas, the Carolinas, Oklahoma, Kansas City, you know, at the best, literally, they say the best barbecue restaurants in the country. And literally his brisket sandwich, I've never had anything even remotely that good.
And so sorry, Pat, I don't mean to check you on that, but it's actually his pastrami on rye sandwich. So it is technically brisket.
Yeah.
But that man
marinates it for like ever.
Set it up. I mean, that's a 2-week fermenting process, brining process before you even get to smoke it. So those sandwiches were born 2 weeks before we actually ate them, you know, in the whole brining process.
My mouth's watering. Just
everyone.
That is my favorite sandwich in the world. St. Patty's Day is when he makes it. It's his favorite holiday. And yeah, Clever
That's
Name
insane.
Barbecue.
Absolutely
Look
insane.
those guys up. Don't sleep on them. They're amazing.
Yeah.
And just again, for those of you watching, that's 6 to 9 Bulldog Arms in Bettendorf, Iowa. I know that we do have a large Quad Cities audience, but we have fans all over the world. So if you're not in the Quad Cities, you can watch on my Facebook Live, the MMA Mobsters Instagram Live, and Pat Miletich's either Instagram, I think it's Instagram Live. So,
Yeah.
Josh, it's just, and then I have a couple more questions for you.
Can I say just one thing? Otherwise,
Of course.
I might not be getting any husband favors in the next couple of days. But my wife says Randy Candy is where it's at. She disagrees with you and Pat. She believes that his smoked pork belly, smoked candy pork belly is his signature dish.
All right. I'm going to have to try that too.
Ideas, yeah.
All right.
Howat, I've lost like 40 pounds this year. You're killing me talking about food, man. You're gonna make me fat again.
Good, mate. It's just protein. You'll be
Miletich
fine.
makes fun of me when I'm fat. He pinches my belly and everything. It's terrible. So talk about growing up in a war-torn country, Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. Talk about growing up in that, and then what brought you to this country, what brought you to the Quad Cities, and what brought you into Pat Miletich's gym, where, like you've told me before, your life is a movie. And whether it was Zimbabwe or training with all those legends, and Pat, you're a fascinating person, and your life really has been a movie. Yeah.
Wow. I believe in my eyes I've had a pretty fascinating life. I mean, I'm just, anybody that knows me, I'm pretty irregular kind of guy. But like Josh was saying, I grew up in a civil war. Zimbabwe, or Rhodesia at the time, was one of the last colonial countries in Africa. And it was going through, decolonization started in the mid-50s in Africa after the Second World War. And Rhodesia had a huge, what was then known as an expat community, European community that had made it their home for many generations, and they were the holdouts against decolonization. So there was a huge civil war, and it was an ugly time. Countries trying to find their way and figure it out, and we went through a pretty ugly civil war, and got to see some ugly stuff. And we ended up, my parents moved us to England in '85, which was 5 years after independence. The country transitioned. If you guys are Bob Marley fans, you'll remember a song called Zimbabwe, great song, which he performed at the sort of the Independence Day celebrations there. And after 5 years, it got pretty ugly. Africa, when it decolonized, gets pretty rough, and the local population, because of tribal issues, et cetera, the local population usually gets decimated by the more powerful, the larger volume of people, and it was really ugly, mate. So my parents, we moved to the UK, and I had a really good teenage years in England. I moved over here to come and follow my dad's footsteps. Actually, my grandfather's footsteps initially. My grandpa came to the Quad Cities in, I think, 32. I think in 32. And it took him 6 months to get here from southern Rhodesia then. My dad came here in 66 or 67. I think it took him 6 weeks to get here. And I hopped on a plane, and 9 hours later, I was in Moline Airport. I came here on a rugby scholarship, and the plane doors opened, and it felt like an oven opened on me, because back in those days you had to get off onto the tarmac and then walk into the airport.
Tiny little Moline Airport, yeah.
Yep, yeah, and the doors open, and I looked at my dad and went, "Are you kidding me? I got to play rugby in this?" I think this was a Monday, and rugby started on Tuesday, and I was just like, "How am I going to run in this? Let alone play a full game of rugby?" So that was my introduction to Quad Cities. I went to an amazing school called Palmer College of Chiropractic. Unfortunately, in my last year, I was in a bad motorcycle wreck, and I bounced my head off the concrete real bad, and I lost my memory. And school became incredibly challenging to pass tests. You know what I mean? It just wasn't in the repertoire anymore. So in all my wisdom, I met Pat Miletich and said, "Yeah, getting hit in the head might be something." None of this was known to him. He just saw me in the gym and befriended me and told me, "Hey, you want to invite you? Come down, try it out, see if you like it." And I was hooked. Without the introduction, I never would have walked in there. It would have terrified me. But Pat was such a kind and friendly guy, and he walked me through it, and I became addicted. And
it's funny. Yeah. It's funny you say that because I tried my hand at rugby, went to some practices, the Quad City Irish, stuff like that, many years ago, and I went, these fuckers are crazy.
Yeah.
Like, this is a rough sport.
They are crazy.
And that's when I was starting doing the kickboxing and all of that sort of stuff, and I was like, I think I probably should preserve my body for the actual combat stuff because rugby, like I can already tell I'm gonna get hurt playing this shit.
Yeah, it's a very concussive game.
I've watched a lot of rugby, man. I've seen a lot of scary dudes out there. They don't play.
Yeah,
they don't play.
Boys, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's
get to some news.
Let's get to some news. Yes, you've read my mind several times today, Pat. It's starting to freak me out a little bit. Does Super Soldier give you mind reading abilities?
It must. It must. Super Soldier at chemicalfreebody.com. Okay.
I know that you use it. So, all right, news. Conor McGregor is coaching on Tough. The man is making a fool out of himself. He doesn't show up half the time. He had a fighter. The only reason, and I used to love The Ultimate Fighter, the only reason that I watch is so I can tell Pat what happened and get Pat worked up, because Pat is even more frustrated than I am. This is driving me crazy. I was a massive Conor fanboy. This was back in
he shit on your dreams.
He's breaking my heart, man. So we're talking back in 2014, 2015. That was my boy. I had my hair cut like Conor McGregor. I remember when he knocked out Jose Aldo. I'm in a Buffalo Wild Wings in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I am skipping and jumping around the bar. I didn't even bet at that time. I was just getting into the high-stakes fantasy, so I guess I did have some money there, but it was more just as a fan. I loved Conor so much. I don't even recognize the man that I see on TV anymore. I don't recognize the man that I see in the news. He cannot fight in 2023, Josh. I don't know if you knew this. Yesterday was the deadline for Conor to get into the USADA testing pool. He has to do that if he wants to fight in 2023. He didn't even make an attempt to get in the testing pool. He didn't even release a statement. He seems to not respect anyone. He definitely doesn't respect the sweet, sacred art of MMA anymore. Let me get your take on this, Josh, and then I'll throw it to Miletich. And it really does. I never really want to get on a soapbox and be judgy, but it hurts me a little bit. A guy that I looked up to, a guy that I respected, we're roughly the same age, a guy that I idolized. I'm disgusted with who he is now, and that's not even getting into the legal stuff of him getting coked up and literally throwing prostitutes off his yacht. And it just came out that he apparently raped someone at the Miami Heat game. So not only was he supposed to He's supposed to.
It's allegedly. Yes, allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. He's supposed to fake punch a mascot. Instead, he real punched the mascot because he was allegedly drunk and coked up. So the mascot has to go to the hospital. And then, apparently, in the midst of all this, a woman has accused him of rape.
How does that happen in an arena full of people, though?
There is video of him dragging her into the women's restroom and like
There's
saying,
video of this.
There's video of it. Yeah, you can look it up on Twitter. Yeah.
Oh, he's in deep shit.
Big woman too. Probably shouldn't say that. Yeah.
Well, just goes to show you he's on some good sauce. He can move big bodies.
She's bigger than he was. Yeah. So, and not to take the accusations lightly. So let's go you first, Miletich, because a guy that I know you have your share of frustrations with, and your boy Chandler now does not have a fight. So now Chandler has to find a fight. Obviously, he got paid for doing the Ultimate Fighter, but the whole point of the Ultimate Fighter was to get that big money fight.
Yeah.
Talk about your boy Chandler. Talk about a guy who is not your boy and Conor McGregor.
Well, it's what it is. You can just see. Conor obviously has made his money. Reportedly $100 million, and after taxes and paying your agents and all that sort of stuff, still probably 40 million, whatever. That's plenty to obviously retire on, and instead of retiring and going to Montana and living in the mountains and enjoying life, he has decided to stay in the spotlight, and do his thing and cause himself some sounds like some big problems coming for him. So, but the repercussions of the people, his wife has to deal with this. Chandler, that's impacting his life because, he's not going to get that big payday. Chandler's obviously made plenty of money from fighting already, but that's a life-changing amount of money in that fight. There's a lot of young athletes and young people who looked up to him, and now we're watching him do the 180 and tear some shit up and ruin himself. So it's unfortunate. I don't dislike really anyone unless they get up in the morning with the plan to destroy and hurt other people, right? And I don't think he does that. I think he just is self-imploding just out of his background, whatever, and not being able to get rid of some of that. So that it's unfortunate, in my eyes.
That was very well said, Pat. Good luck following that, Howat, but I will give you a shot. As a, like I said, 9 pro fights. As a fellow fighter, there's a lot of brotherhood and respect there. I think I really found it with wrestling. I know that's what Pulver and Rory Markham and Miletich and Houston and so many guys have talked about. Tim Hernandez on the live show we did a couple weeks ago talked about the wrestling brotherhood. Conor didn't really get to experience that growing up in a country that he was kind of more of a karate, taekwondo guy, never was in the boxer. And so
he was a pretty talented boxer, and the Irish are very amazing pugilists. Barry McGuigan is one of my early heroes. And he was a lightweight out of Ireland. He was an amazing man, very composed, a real gentleman. I'm sad for Conor. I'm sad for his brand. I'm sad for him. I'm sad for his wife and kids. I hope he gets the help that he needs. It's never good when how do you gauge success? But when you become successful and money, let's just change that. Maybe money concerns might not be your biggest concern anymore. To let the cracks, and we all have them, the cracks in our personalities, to be not only exposed but
magnified,
expanded, exacerbated by one's own. I mean, like I said, we're all prone to it in parts of our life. I just think it's sad that he's going through it, and I feel bad for him. I feel bad for his family. Hopefully he gets some help. Hopefully he hasn't destroyed his entire brand by his actions. And he was always so much fun to watch. I have never been a fan of the shit talking. I don't care who does it. I think it's very unsportsmanlike. I come from a different world where you do all your shit talking on the field, on the rugby pitch, in the ring, on the basketball court. You don't
with
do
action.
It.
You do it with action.
You do it with action. Yeah, you do it. You do it by showing your abilities. So that's never really been a big thing. But one thing that always stood out was this. I believe he said he was cocky before the fight. He was cocky during the fight, but humble in win or losing.
Yeah.
And I did witness that. No matter all the shit talk that he did before the fight and in the ring and the back and forth, his psychological war games that he used to play. Afterwards, when he won or he lost, I did see him show a huge amount of humility. A lot of times, shaking the guy, being complimentary. You know what I mean? That sort of stuff. It was,
Right.
So that was cool. But yeah, like I said, I wish him all the best. I hope he gets a lot of help, and it sounds like there's some sadness attached to it as well, with other people getting hurt and injured.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is not. It is not. The accusations that have been coming out, usually involving Conor and women who are not his wife, are disturbing and just kind of gross. But I really appreciate how both Miletich and you, Howat, talked about it. Was we're not here to dance on his grave. We're not here to virtue signal or whatever. And the genuine concern that both you guys had for him was touching. And I think in this era of cancel culture, we don't have that very much anymore. Genuine sympathy for people. A lot of people seem to be in a rush to just cancel someone or just ruin their lives. And I think not supporting his kind of gross actions, and it seems like he's having a very public mental breakdown, to not just shit all over him just for the sake of it. I think having empathy for your fellow humans is a very good thing that we don't see much anymore. Josh, thank you so much, brother, for coming on. And,
we want to talk we don't want to get rid of him yet, do we?
Well, we're kind of running out of time here. I was going to ask him one more question and then move on to bets. Oh, okay. All right. We will do two more questions. I don't know if you heard about this, Josh, but we have Mark Zuckerberg and what the fuck is it? Elon Musk. So the owner of Facebook and the owner of Twitter. It kind of seemed like it was just silly. They were like, we should fight. Both guys train jiu-jitsu and do other things. And then Dana White goes on ESPN and TMZ saying, oh, no, they've talked to me. They want to fight. If they do it, the UFC will host that fight. We will put it on a pay-per-view, maybe the co-main event for John Jones or something. We will do this. We have sent over contracts, and this isn't fake. It's not officially happening, but we are trying to make it happen. This is not a joke. I'm torn. As a fan, it's fun. It'll bring eyeballs. Well, maybe it'll be right up there with Conor McGregor cards. I think Conor McGregor, of the 5 biggest UFC pay-per-views ever, Conor's headlined 4 of them. So this will be up there. I'm going to get the opinion of the UFC Hall of Famer first, Pat. Does this just disgust you to your core? Can you respect trying to make some, they know it's going to make money? Thoughts?
I mean, if they do it for charity, it would make sense, right? Because both obviously have more money than they are. Elon Musk, who owns Tesla. Tesla, while they make cars, is not a car company. It's a company that deploys military equipment into the skies above us. He makes billions of dollars off of that. And then, Mark Zuckerberg, the front man for the Book of Faces.
Yeah.
Just do it for charity. Do it for charity. How's that?
Yeah. Like a quick response from you, Howat, then one last question, then we'll get you going.
Yeah, I think, hey, I really believe that our world needs some more people that know what it feels like to get touched.
That's good.
I'm all for big
like
talking people to figure out what how to then conduct themselves correctly.
I like that.
I think it's great that these guys are willing to step in, and if they do it for charity, I think it'll be a big event. It'll make a lot of money for some people in need. But it might also show the world that at some point you're going to be called to put your money where your mouth is, or maybe your face. And someone might want to take it off.
All right, man. We're going to let you go, and we'll see you in a few hours.
Looking forward to it, brother.
Joshua Howat.
See you soon.
UFC bet time. You ready, Pat?
Yes, sir.
Decent week last week. We were all over Costa. We said Jimmy Flick is a one-trick pony. If he doesn't land a crazy stand-on-his-head submission, he's going to get boxed up. And what happened? He got boxed up. Costa Costa's good.
Yeah.
But I think pretty much any above average fighter in that division that doesn't have horrific takedown defense fucks Jimmy Flick up. We may not see
Jimmy's
him in
not a
UFC.
great striker. He's not a
really,
magician with his hands. So,
and he's not even that good at wrestling. And that's the issue with a lot of jiu-jitsu people. I know that Mackenzie Dern struggled with that for a while, and she's gotten better at wrestling.
right.
But if you're a jiu-jitsu player, getting the fight to the ground is kind of important. So with that there, and then we were over the Cannoneer underdog. He was, I think, plus 110, plus 120 when we recommended a bet on him. Beat the brakes off Marvin Vettori.
Yes.
Just really, really fucking hurt him.
I had a good feeling about that one. I really did. And I said I've always liked Cannoneer. He's, the interactions that I had with him, while not a lot, real decent human being.
All right.
So
we have 13 fights to absolutely
Buzz
zoom through. Okay, Cody Brundage, Senriquez, Dumas. Who wins and why?
Okay, so I am on the wrong page here, brother, because I got to find all of it.
Okay. I will give my take
through it
while Miletich is finding that. You have Brundage. He is primarily a wrestler, but has shown some striking. Dumas looked terrible. I'm resisting the urge to do a dad joke and say Dumas fought like a dumbass, but he did. It was bad. It wasn't just a lack of talent. In fact, I'm not even sure it was a lack of talent. He just his head was not there. He quit in the fight, and the guy that he was fighting, he should have beat that guy. On paper, he should have beat him, and he just looked lost. There is something to the bright lights of the UFC. Your first time in there, some guys shine, some guys crumble.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that does matter. And so we've seen Brundage open at minus 150, go up to minus 180. You should not. Is Howat trying to hop back on? You should not be making your bets based on, this guy sucked in his last fight, so I'm not betting on him. That certainly happened. What you should be making your bets on is math, facts, analytics. I like Brundage to win here. Do you agree, Pat?
I'm leaning Brundage. The thing is, has Brundage been finished his last two fights?
I will check.
I thought I remembered that, and
I think he had a finish of the guy who's fighting Bo Nickel. Very impressive knockout. Oh, geez, you're on it, Pat. Olin Jachuk knocked him the fuck out in the first round. Hammer fists. Was last December. Rodolfo Vieira, who is a jiu-jitsu player, one of the best jiu-jitsu players in the world, choked him out in round two. Brundage actually knocked Rodolfo Vieira down and tried to pound him out. Vieira survived, and then Brundage was just exhausted.
Right.
And one of the greatest back take artists in the world, Rodolfo Vieira, took that back, sunk it in. Good night, Aaron.
So this tells me something. Look, if I am Brundage and I drop one of the world's best jiu-jitsu guys, I make him get back up. I step away and I make him get back up. If I want that win pay, right?
Yep.
I don't want the show money. I want the win money too.
Yep.
Right. I'm going to step away and make him get back up, and
Yep.
I'm going to knock him out righteously if I didn't the first time. Right. So I don't think he was being smart in that fight at all. And so you deserve to get submitted when you go after someone on the ground who is one of the world's best. So I think, while he has gone up in the odds, I lean a little bit towards him, but I would not even remotely be surprised if Dumas comes out and pulls off an upset.
Yeah, and I'm going to fire something in here real quick, and then we'll soar through the next few fights. You should never, ever, in MMA betting, sports betting, I don't care if it's betting, curling, you should never not bet a team or a person because they looked bad the last time that you saw them. You should, in fact, do the opposite. Because Miletich, you didn't have many losses, but when you did have a loss, I bet you attacked that next fight as if your life dependent on it. I think we often, and you see it with sports teams all the time, like in the NBA Finals, a team will get beat by 20 points, and everyone will say, oh, they're just going to lose again. No, they will come back and usually win the next game because the pendulum's always swinging. It's always going to revert back to the mean, who you are as a fighter, and also there is that dirty taste in your mouth, so you should never not bet a fighter because they didn't look good in their last fight.
And what a lot of people don't take into account is, and for me personally, and I know this has taken place for a lot of other guys, but all but 2 losses on my record, and not to make excuses, but basically had pretty severe injuries going into the fight. Like I fought once with a broken leg.
I know.
And,
I heard the duct tape was holding your leg together, basically.
Fought another time when, luckily the orthopedic doctor from Atlanta who saw me hobbling around back in the locker room and going, dude, what's wrong with you? And I told him, and he shot me up with a bunch of Xylocaine just so I could walk out to the cage, stuff like that. So that does happen. And so that's why insiders aren't allowed to bet on the sport anymore, because they're going to know things like that.
James Krause situation. Yeah.
Right. They're going to know things like that. So
exactly.
We don't know. We don't know what's going on with them physically or what could have happened, transpired in their life, like a divorce or a death in the family or anything that could have just thrown the whole world off for them.
Sure.
Right. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Jack Jenkins, Jamal Emmers. We saw Jamal open up at -175. He has jumped up 50 points to -225. Not exactly means I'm going to rush and bet every penny that I have on Jamal Emmers, but that is a decent move. Do you agree with the 50-point line movement, Pat, or what do you think?
I like Jamal Emmers in this fight. I really do.
I like him too.
And his last win over Achabov, who was, 20-0 at the time?
Yeah.
Emmers is coming into his own, man. He's always been good, but he's legit. He's legit. So, yeah, I definitely am leaning strongly towards Emmers in that.
Yeah. So as we've been trying to promote MMA Mobsters and let more people know about this really fun, really cool show and things that we're doing, I've joined a few Facebook groups for MMA betting, and I will post a link to our video, and I picked up a few new subscribers that way. I am in one MMA betting group, and there is this guy who is driving me crazy. All week he has said that Trevor Peek is the lock of the century. And first of all, a -110 fighter can never be a lock. Secondly, guy who's driving me crazy, I don't even remember your name, I'm going to have to block you soon. I disagree because we have seen Jose Mariscal open up at +140, go to -104. We have seen Peek open up at -180, go to -110. That is a 70-point line movement, Pats. And underdog flipped to favorite. I'm all over that. Do you agree? Do you think Mariscal deserved to flip the favorite, or what do you got here?
Mariscal can bang. I mean, I've called, I think, at least one of his fights. I think it's going to be a hell of a fight. I think the quality of opponents for Peek have not been great.
Yeah.
Mariscal has fought some legit tough guys, and he's got a three-fight win streak. Peek's 11-fight win streak.
8-0.
8-0 as a pro, but 11-fight win streak.
Yeah. I think that O is going to fucking go.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. Mariscal can bang, dude. Mariscal legitimately can bang. He is a Windy City rough guy, right?
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. All right. Zalgas Zumagulov, fantastic fighter name, fighting Joshua Van on extremely short notice. I believe Joshua Van accepted this fight 1 or 2 days ago. We have not had much time for line movement because this fight has been kind of crumpled up and thrown together. -200 for Zamagulov. Do you like the guy on a few days' notice, or do you like the guy who's had, I think, 5 or 6 UFC fights?
Zumagulov is from where?
Kazakhstan. It's where Borat's from.
He's fought
very nice.
His quality of opponents have been very tough. He's got some losses in there, but a lot of experience against very, very high-level opponents, very tough guys, tight games. It makes a difference in a fighter, and I'm leaning towards Zumagulov.
So am I. Tabitha Ricci, Jillian Robertson. We had a whale bet on. We recommended doing a decent sized bet on Jillian Robertson. She was similar odds to this, maybe like minus 110. She had flipped from underdog to favorite. She looked very good. But again, like we just talked about, you don't necessarily hammer down on betting a fighter because they look good in a fight. There are levels to this game. The pendulum always swings. Tabitha Ricci is about minus 130. Jillian Robertson is plus 110. Who do you like here, Pat?
I lean a bit towards Ricci. She's 3-0 on the ground, but Robertson is legit good on the ground.
She is legit good on the ground and legit below average on the feet.
Right. So, like I said, while Ricci has 3 subs, never been submitted, all that good stuff, she's a little more vulnerable standing up.
Yes.
In my mind. Can Robertson get it done standing up? Probably not.
No.
So this is probably going to take place on the ground, a lot of it anyway, maybe.
Yeah.
And I lean towards Robertson if this fight spends a lot of time on the ground. Robertson,
yeah.
I mean, in a grappling match, she submitted Rose Namajunas in like a minute.
Yeah.
Smoked her.
Yeah.
So
she's
good.
I have had, I'm looking at my girl's record here. I have had, I believe, 3 4-figure bets on Jillian Robertson over the course of her UFC career and my MMA betting career. All 3 fights, all 3 of those bets have won. And I'll tell you what it's like heavily betting a Jillian Robertson fight. Pacing around in my man cave or in my bedroom, and I'm watching her get beat up on the feet. I'm like, no, don't get hit. Take her down. And Jillian, she's a sweetheart. And all-world grappler. Her striking is bad. She gets hit in the head. She gets kicked in the feet. She gets kicked in the head. And to the point a couple times, it almost looks like it's going to be finished. She finds a takedown, and now she's in her world, bitch. Like, now she is just so good at on the ground. There may not, man, she's up there with Mackenzie Dern for best ground game for a woman in the UFC. The issue is, can she get it to the ground? Ricci, decent takedown defense, decent striking. If Ricci can stuff those takedowns and those trips, it's going to be an ugly night for Jillian Robertson. I love you, Jillian. You've made me a lot of money. You don't have good striking. And unless you can get the fight to the ground, it's going to be ugly.
And if the fight ends up on the ground and looks like it's going to be there a lot, you're betting... Live betting.
Looking for a live bet. And I'll tell you another thing about Jillian. Fantastic gas tank. An issue with live betting is, look, this guy or girl is getting takedowns in the first round. This is their fight. Sometimes they get tired. Jillian doesn't get tired. So if she can find success at the takedown in the first round, you're exactly right. One thing we've been talking about, then I will look to live bet Jillian Robertson.
There you go.
So moving on, footloose and fancy free, Mateusz Rebecki is fighting Loik Radzabov. We have 2 very Eastern European names here. Who do you got, Pat?
I'm leaning towards the gentleman from Poland, Rebecki, a little bit in this one. He took the long road to the UFC. He had 16 fights under his belt before he got there. That is where I lean a lot towards, and he fought some tough people as well. Good quality of opponents before he even got to the UFC. And, I think that definitely helps him quite a bit. Solid hands in wrestling on the other side. Loic is pretty solid there.
Both guys are prospects for sure.
Tough guys. Both very tough guys. What are the odds at now? Rebecki is favored still?
Glad you asked. Minus 150 for Rebecki. Radzabadov comes back at you at plus 130.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would not doubt a win on either side, but I lean towards Rebecki a little bit on this one, to say the least. Yeah.
All right. We've seen some movement for Rebecki. We saw him open at minus 125. He is now minus 150 or minus 155. That matters to me, Pat. If I see a minus 300 favorite move 25 points to minus 325,
not a big deal.
It's good, not a big deal. Bigger deal when they go from like minus 125 to minus 155. That's just how math works. It's the same amount of points on the betting odds, but when there were a smaller number, that's just how it works. So
I get it.
I figured you would.
It's like a fat guy cutting 20 pounds compared to a 150-pound guy cutting 20 pounds.
That is exactly what it's like.
There
yes.
you go.
Randy Brown, Wellington Turman. Who do you got here, Pat?
This one I lean towards Randy Brown, but you know what sticks with me?
What's that?
The fact that he got knocked out while he was on top of Nico Price.
I don't think Randy Brown's that good. I think he's one of those overrated fighters in the UFC.
So, mediocre quality of opponents for Turman.
Yeah.
That's something that stands out to me quite a bit. Brown has fought definitely better quality of opponents for certain, and that's why I lean towards Brown in this one.
I think Wellington's going to get the upset here.
You think so?
I
don't doubt it, dude. I don't doubt it.
So look at this. Look at this here, Pat. We said FanDuel, Randy opened at minus 280. He's already been punched all the way down to minus 230. I think we see that number drop even more before they fight tomorrow morning. And again, I'm a math guy. So I don't let outside noise affect me too much. But I don't like Randy Brown's body language this week. Like I said, one of the most overrated fighters in the UFC. He's on the mic saying that he's a top 10 fighter in the entire world. No, you're fucking not. So
but he's still better than the Jamaican bobsled team.
We are Jamaica. We have a bobsled team. Hey, Saka, you dead?
His fighting from Jamaica is better than the Jamaican bobsled team.
And again, you have to be careful. I don't put much stock into, he looked tired at the weight cut, or he's whining on the microphone a lot. We have another guy coming up who's whining on the microphone a lot this week. I don't put a ton of stock into that, but could it swing me a little? What does swing me is the fact that he opened up at minus 290 and has been cut down to minus 230. That means that smart, professional bettors with a lot of money are hammering the Turman side.
Yeah, and I think I will say this. They have similar percentages in terms of the knockout department, right? Both have been finished twice, but they're better. They've bettered their opponents more than they've been bettered. Turman stands out on the ground.
Yep.
Turman stands out to me on the ground. He's better on the ground most likely.
Yeah.
So that's maybe where he's going to get it done.
Yep.
So
Neil Magny, Phil Rowe. What do you got here, sir?
I love Neil Magny, and I love the fact that he's had a rough road for a while. Right? He's beaten
fought
some great
everyone.
fighters. He's beat
Hall of Fame resume.
Yeah, he's fought a massive amount of very, very high quality guys. This is going to be his 30th UFC fight.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm. 20-9 in the octagon. And so, I see him beating Philip Rowe, definitely. Philip does not have the experience that Neil Magny does. And potentially, is this Neil Magny's retirement fight? They're potentially putting him in with a guy that he's supposed to beat.
Yeah.
To be able to, put the gloves down in the
I haven't heard anything about retirement, but I will tell you that I like Magny to win this fight. I'm not a Phil Rowe fan. No disrespect. I'm not a fan. Magny is so well rounded. And who beats Neil Magny, Pat? The best of the best.
Right.
Gilbert Burns beats Neil Magny.
Sure.
You have to be, I think, a top 10, top 15 guy in this division to beat Neil Magny. That ain't Phil Rowe. And I think that minus 170 is a bit of a steal. I think if it was me, and we do see the line climbing a little bit, if I was a sports book, I would have Magny at like minus 270, minus 300. I think that the odds are a little bit too low.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, in terms of Philip Rowe, hey, I will say this. Hats off to him. Because he does a lot of grappling matches and things like that. But the thing is, he's trying to get better at grappling. But when he goes and does grappling matches, he almost always loses.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So but hats off to him because he's trying to get better in that department.
But shouldn't he be in the gym as opposed to just working on grappling instead of going to a tournament?
No, I think competing, I deliberately did kickboxing to get much better at kickboxing. I deliberately trained with world-class boxers to get better at boxing. I bled a lot to do it. And going to grappling tournaments because you're under pressure, you don't have the option to strike.
Yeah.
You're forced into an arena, an area where you are weak and forced to depend on those skill sets, right?
Yeah.
And that's the only way, really, in my mind, people get a lot better is to be put under pressure in those areas that you're not great at.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brendan Allen, Bruno Silva, who you got here, Pat?
You asked me so quickly. So one thing I did notice about Tapology is their order changed when I was doing research.
They did that just to fuck with Pat Miletich.
They did. So ask me again here.
Brendan Allen and Bruno Silva.
Brendan Allen and Bruno Silva. That's back here. You go ahead and get started on it.
All right. Two guys who are a bit up and down. Sometimes they fight, they look like a future top 10 contender. Sometimes when they fight, they look completely lost. Let's see what the line movement is telling us. We saw Brendan Allen. The line is stale, and I think that that's fair because these are two pretty evenly matched guys. Brendan Allen opened at minus 180. He's up to minus 200. That's not a decent move. We do have BetMGM where he opened at minus 150, and now he's minus 200. So I would give the edge to Brendan Allen, but certainly not anything that I'm locking in. Yep.
So the one thing that I observed about these guys is that Brendan Allen is a very tough guy when it comes to standing up. He can take a massive amount of punishment. I've watched it. I've called
your boy Chris.
several of
Your
his
boy
fights.
Chris Curtis hurt him pretty bad.
Yeah. And I called several of his fights, Allen's fights in the LFA. Very tough guy, and he's good on the ground. He's legit.
He's
on the
very
ground.
good on the ground.
But I feel like if Allen stands up with Silva, he may find he may have a bad night.
Yeah.
He may have a really rough night because Silva is a straight up, he's good standing. He really is. Conversely, he's fucking not very good on the ground.
Yeah.
He gets submitted quite a bit.
Yeah.
And this is where Brendan Allen stands out more.
Yeah.
He's got 12 subs, I believe.
Yeah.
So if Brendan Allen's going to win this fight, in my mind, he's got to get it done on the ground.
Yeah. Another live betting opportunity if we see Brendan Allen immediately hunting double legs, getting him against the cage, trying to take it to the ground, feel more comfortable live bet. If Brendan Allen wants to play Rock'em Sock'em Robots with Bruno Silva, maybe live bet the other side.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go.
David O. Nama, Gabriel Santos. Who we got here, Pat?
So Santos never been finished. Onama never been finished. Both tough guys. Quality of opponents for Onama, I just wrote meh.
Yeah.
That's about what I can come up with when I looked at
Yeah.
all the opponents. Santos has had a better quality of opponents. I lean towards Santos. What are the odds at now? Because when I was originally doing the research, Santos was pretty heavily favored at that time.
Lines dropped a little bit. Santos opened at minus 250. He's now minus 220.
Okay. So not a ton.
Yeah.
Not a ton. So, yeah, quality of opponents for me is the leaner.
Yep. Yeah, I don't really want anything to do with this fight because I don't think we know who Onama is yet. He put a whooping on, who's that hick from Tennessee? He just, our boy Dan Ige just pieced him up. We were big on Dan Ige just a couple weeks ago. Nate Landwehr.
Okay.
So Onama fights Nate Landwehr, really has him finished in the first round. Landwehr hangs on, and then Onama's just done. And Landwehr literally danced on Onama. Could have finished him several times, kept getting up and playing to the crowd. Onama's just laying there. The fight's still going, and Landwehr's, I think, more playing to the crowd than trying to mock Onama. But he made Onama look really bad in those last two rounds. And so, but Onama's also looked really good. He's still a prospect. He's only got 12 fights. Who is he? I am willing to pass on betting this fight pre-flop. Maybe I hit it live because I just don't know who Onama is yet. And neither do the whale bettors because this line hasn't moved a whole ton. Little bit in Onama's direction. But
Makes sense.
Justin Taffa, Austin Lane, big boys. Taffa minus 180, Lane plus 143. Who you got here, Pat?
I'm hunting. Go ahead.
Oh, geez, I don't really love this. And again, there are some fights on this card that I like. I don't know if I love this fight. Heavyweights, they're both below average heavyweights. I feel safe enough saying that. So I think the issue with Taffa, some takedown defense has been exposed, and Austin Lane does wrestle a little bit. Austin Lane just isn't that good. So maybe if Austin Lane can find success with the takedowns, if he cannot, Taffa will probably knock his ass out. Could be another live bet, maybe see what Austin Lane goes in there doing. Austin Lane is not good. He was on Dana White Contender Series. In fact, he was the guy they would bring in for like a Greg Hardy. We're like, we need Greg Hardy to knock a motherfucker out. They would bring in Austin Lane. and Greg Hardy would knock a motherfucker out. I mean, he was brought in to make several heavyweights look good,
Right.
And I don't know if they just finally felt bad for him. I think he's on the wrong end of 35, and so they gave him a couple of UFC fights. So, yeah, I'm not impressed with Austin Lane at all. I haven't been for most of his career. Now he's finally in the UFC, but I'm just not that impressed with Tafa either. So it's hard. Obviously, I'm going to lean Tafa, but yeah, you go.
Yeah, one thing, Austin Lane, while he does have good height, good reach.
Well, he's got a great body.
All
you
those
would
things.
looking at him, you could do, but he gets in the
Yeah, I get it. I'm not betting this one. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Amanda Ribas. Macy Barber. Macy Barber, the last time we saw her, we didn't see her, Pat, because we're announcing Caged Aggression.
Right.
And she was part of she was part of your parlay, and I had her heavily, probably at least 1,100, 1,200 on her between different bets. And I remember we're literally sitting there calling the fights maybe in intermission, and I elbow you, and I'm like, hey, Macy just won a controversial split decision. So neither of us watched it. We're literally watching fights happening inches away from us. But I said, I guess that we'll take it. Right. I'm not sure how controversial it was. So that was her last fight. Do you think Macy is a bit of a mixed bag? Hebas, pretty good favorite here, minus 210. Are you going to the favorite or the underdog?
Barber has figured, I think, there were some problems going on with her physically, energy-wise and endurance-wise. And
she switched gyms, I believe.
Yeah, there was some stuff going on. Maybe, not taking the right supplements or whatever. Not right diet for her, whatever. But she's won her last 4 fights. She's looking better. She is looking better. But when you look at Reba, she's beaten Dern, Van Zant, Marcos, Jindroba, Araju. She's beaten some good girls.
Yeah.
So I lean towards Rebus in this one.
I lean toward Rebus as well. Ilya Topuria. I fucking like this kid. I've been saying for at least the past 2 years, I believe he will fight for a championship. He wins this fight, he will fight for a championship.
Yeah.
Fights Josh Emmett, who is no scrub in his own right, has some of the most massive knockout power in the division. The issue with Emmett is a bit of a one-trick pony, unless he lands that thunderous
right hand.
Right. And it is thunderous. Many men have fallen to it.
Yeah.
So we're looking at Ilya minus 350. If I was a sports book, I would not make the line that wide. As much as I love Topuria, I would have him as more like a minus 250 favorite. But he's getting steamed up, Pat. A little bit of money's coming in. Do you like Topuria or do you like the underdog, Josh Emmett?
Again, just as you said, Emmett's got to land that big right hand, or he's not going to win this fight. Topuria, I think, is too quick, too nimble, and will outmove him.
What this fight will be, and you and I will break this down more in the live show here in a couple hours, what this fight will look like. It'll be Topuria staining Emmett, probably mixing in some wrestling, outworking Emmett, and Emmett will be looking to land that one
big bomb.
Yep. For 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Certainly possible. We saw Emmett get finished by Yair in his last fight. He kind of claimed injury, but yeah, I think it'll be a fun fight, and we are going to sign off. Thank you, Josh Howat. YouTube likes. Several more people liked the video. The video got more views. That's how YouTube works. Thank you to our people watching, and just would ask all of you, hit the like button, subscribe if you don't, share. We are building this thing, the live show that we're going to be doing in a couple hours as part of building this thing. Thank you to our fans. We will not forget you when we have, 500,000 views, but we appreciate it so much. Miletich just walked off. He's got to pee or poop, I think. So thank you to our fans. We love you and we appreciate you, and we're having so much fun doing this. MMA Mobsters to the fucking moon. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Please, 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 please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter. We will see you next week. MMA Mobsters. We love you guys. Thank you.